Tyler. I was laying on my side on the bed, the sheets pulled down to my stomach, staring across the room to the window. The curtains were open, and the very first glimpse of light was starting to show in the sky. I hadn't even gotten to sleep yet. I just laid here all night, thinking about everything that had suddenly happened to me. Marco never even asked where I'd been, so I never had to give an answer. Neil seemed pretty angry, but I knew it was because he cared, and he was worried. Max had filled me in on a few things before he'd dropped me off, like the fact I was staying with my uncle now, until my parents thought it was safe back home. Apparently someone had broken into my room. Max explained that it had actually been him, but that my parents didn't know. He told me I was still dating Vienna, and it was actually her who set the two of us up in the first place. She'd encouraged it. He wasn't sure how much I'd told my friends, so he couldn't tell me about that. But he did say that Gunnar was being strange and not talking to me. He said it's because of the incident at his house, not that he even remembered it. So he filled me in on all of the events I'd forgotten and explained as best he could. But it was like being told something new, something you didn't know first off. It was hard to believe all this had happened and why I'd forgotten them in the first place. I'd killed 2 aliens tonight without even thinking about it. I'd just taken them down with a natural instinct to protect. Protect myself? Or protect Max? I couldn't remember that guy. As hard as I tried, I couldn't. But I wanted to. I closed my eyes and pictured Max before me. He was laying there in my bed in front of me, smirking at me in the dim light. Please remember me, imaginary Max breathed on my face. I'm trying, I replied, and after that I tried to drift off to sleep to the thoughts of Max here with me. Came a muffled, distant sound from out in the living room. I frowned and then smirked. I thought I'd been sensing some tension between my uncle and my best friend for a while now. Looks like things had progressed in the few weeks of memory I'd missed. Marco. It was early, but I wasn't sure how early. 6? 7? Too early for a Saturday, at least. I was sleeping on the couch in Neil's apartment, Tyler and Neil in their own rooms, but something was moving around in the room that woke me. I opened my eyes, but it was still dark and I couldn't see very well. The curtains were closed in the living room to block the light, but I could see a dark figure moving around the room. It was standing at the end of the couch near my feet, moving towards me slowly. I sat up quickly, opening my mouth to scream, but a hand covered my mouth. Shh, it's me, Neil whispered, sitting down on the couch edge near me. I relaxed, gulping down the scream that had crept up my throat. Don't do that, I hissed, yanking his hand down from my mouth. Sorry, he chuckled, leaning over me, but I couldn't help it. Then he pressed his lips to mine. It felt good, warm and inviting, and soothing. I forgave him right away, tucking a hand behind his head and pulling him down as I laid back on the couch. He climbed over me, one knee between my legs. I tilted his head to deepen the kiss. I let him, parting my lips to invite his tongue, and he accepted. I was thinking, Neil said. I had a bad feeling about this. I replied, because I didn't want to properly address it. I'm your principal, he started, but I shut him up by smashing my mouth back to his. I distracted him for a few moments with some intense tongue action, but he was persistent and pulled back again. Marco, listen, he said. I tried to kiss him again, but he pushed on my shoulder and pinned me down, holding me back. Because of our status, if you're not serious about this, you need to let me know now. I'm not going to risk my career for some boy who's looking for a quick hookup. His words stung me, but I understood them. I'm serious about you, I told him firmly, waiting for the pang of pain to hit when he told me no. But Neil didn't speak. He just looked down at me for a moment through the darkness before kissing me again. Good. Then you can't tell anyone, he informed me. I still had one thing left to say, but I let him keep me quiet. I'm going to break up with my girlfriend in the morning, I told him. He pressed his face into my neck and sighed. It's the right thing to do if we're going to continue this, he said into my skin, sending a shudder through me. I grabbed at his shirt, pulling it away from his stomach. Does that mean... I started, but Neil cut me off with a kiss. Yes, I'll break it off with my boyfriend. He smirked and licked over my bottom lip. You better, I told him and latched on, pulling him down to me. Oh, really? Neil chuckled, kissing the corner of my mouth. I moaned, and Neil moved so that both his legs were now between mine. Yes, or I'm dumping your ass, I told him. My sexy ass? He retorted and laughed loudly, then clamped a hand over my mouth and looked into the direction of the hallway where Tyler's bedroom would be. Shh, Neil breathed, amused, and kissed me softly, not giving me a chance to reply with a smart comment. Neil's hand trailed down my bare chest because I'd been sleeping in only my boxers, him in his briefs, and came to a stop on my crotch. I lurched, lust growing in my pelvis. The idea of doing anything with a man was still a little strange. But if it was Neil... Is this okay? He asked me, noticing my resistance. Yeah, I breathed, wanting him to touch me more. This is your first time with a guy, Neil guessed, but it seemed more rhetorical. Then I'll save the big act for some other time, and make you want it more. And then he slid his hand up one leg of my boxer shorts. Tyler. It's been a while now. I'm not sure how long exactly. I find it easier if I don't keep track of time, and just let the weeks blend together, one after the other. But it was somewhere around 3 months now? There's still no news from Max, but I'm not worried. He's an alien. He's my alien. And even though none of my memories have returned yet, I'm certain of one thing. I'm in love with Kayasora Max Tejuk. I'm still living with my uncle, and Marco seems to be over more often than not. I don't mind, though I know he's not actually even there for me, but for my uncle. They haven't officially told me about it yet, but I know what's going on. I know both of them too well for that. Vienna and I broke up. She did it, not me. She said it was for the best, because she's found someone else. I had to check him out, to make sure he was good enough for her, and I think he is. He's taller than me, with brown, fluffy hair and green eyes. His name is Charlie, and now he sits with us in our group. They're really cute together, so I'm happy for them. Gunnar has returned to us, along with his new girlfriend, Sarah. She's the girl I was telling you about at the beginning. Turns out she liked him all along, too, and she was just waiting for him to ask her out. For a shy girl with glasses, she's actually really confident in herself, which I admire. Everything's good. My grades are good, my parents and family are good. My friends are all happy and well, and life goes on. I can smile and laugh and not have a care in the world when I'm hanging with my friends, doing work at school, watching movies at home with my uncle, parents, and friends. It's easy enough to keep moving forward, and everyone goes on like Max never even existed, which is fine enough by me. But deep down, I miss him so much it hurts. It burns in my chest like a raging fire, and at night I lay awake for hours thinking about him, wondering what he's doing, hoping he's thinking about me and missing me as much as I am of him. Whatever he's doing, wherever he is, I just hope he's safe and happy, regardless if he ever comes back to me or not. So right now, after my big rant just now in my brain, I'm sitting on the grass with my group laughing at Marco, who's currently wearing a slice of ham as a mask on his face. Oh yeah, did I mention Marco broke up with a slut Freya, who's now dating the high school's biggest jerk? Well, he did, and she is. And Marco's fine with it because he has Neil. And Neil broke up with what's-his-face anyway. Isn't it slimy? V asked Marco, who was now trying to eat it off his face without hands. Yup, he laughed, popping the pea. Give me a go, Gunnar said, taking the ham off Marco's face, putting it on his own. He failed when the ham slid down his nose and landed on his lap. I'm not touching that now, Marco cried, leaping away as Gunnar threw it back at him. Aw, come on, a bit of dirt never hurt anyone, I teased, picking up the ham and throwing it at Marco, who jumped to his feet and leapt in the air over the flying cold meat cut. The siren went for class, and we all slowly got up, grabbing our stuff to make our way along. Marco left the slice of ham laying on the ground and wanted to stay and see who'd slip over it, but I dragged him away. So you can only imagine what life has been like since Max left. Classes for the rest of the day went slow and boring, but as usual, you just have to do them and get them over with. I'd lost my need to argue with the teachers over every single point they made since Max came along, and now that he's gone, that hasn't changed. I just don't feel the need to be bothered about it anymore. I walked home in silence, thinking about nothing in particular. I headed home to an empty apartment. Neil was nowhere in sight. Probably still at school, I thought as I made my way to my room. I threw my bag down in the middle of the floor and stripped down to my underwear, going over to my closet to change into something more comfortable. I put on sweats and a tank and then turned on my computer and sat with it on my mattress on the floor. I quite enjoy living with my uncle. It was casual, easy, and because Neil was so young and still went to parties and stuff, I pretty much had the place to myself most of the time. There was a click from down the hall. I heard it because my door was still open and glanced up. Neil? I called, logging into my Facebook. I had 2 inbox messages, but I didn't get a chance to click on them because a dark shadow appeared in my doorway. I lifted my eyes and then jumped to my feet, dropping my laptop to the floor where it broke in half. Good day, the Martian growled and swiped at me. The back of his hand caught me in the stomach, and I paused for a second before being thrown backwards across the room. I hit the window, but the glass didn't hold, and I fell through it. I fell backwards to the ground so fast I couldn't even tell which way was up or down. Then something hard smacked into me from behind. I'd hit the pavement 3 stories below. I stared up at the night sky, feeling numb all over. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't even feel them. But that didn't matter right now. What did matter was that the moment my head hit the concrete, all these visions were shoved before my eyes on speed dial, flashing one after the other. My eyes rolled back into my skull as the pain hit me, and then I took a big, deep breath in, and it stopped. Everything. I remembered everything. I remembered my parents forcing me out of my home. I remembered the fight with the Martians, and I remembered saving Max on the oval at school in the pouring rain. Max, I moaned before something heavy pulled me under and away from the world. Max. Commander, the fleet is advancing, a cadet said through my earpiece in my helm headset. My ship was rattling like crazy, hitting the currents pulsating through the vacuum of space from the blast of the mother ship to my right, which had just been blown up. Prepare for the attack, I replied, pressing a whole heap of buttons and holding the gear stick between my knees to steer. I looked out the windscreen to space, my breathing apparatus taped over my mouth and nose. It was low-grade tech, but it was still all I had to survive. Out of the window was a huge line of Martian ships, thousands of them, advancing towards my small crew. How did they have so many? I'd killed over a couple hundred today already, and I thought it'd been over. But no. Attack? But sir, there's only 20 of us left, my cadet barked in my ear. I could hear the fear in his voice. Fine, back down, I told him, but I boosted my engines and moved towards the advancing fleet. The radio wave was silenced for a moment. Then it crackled before the reply. We won't back down, sir. We're with you, he said, and then it went dead. It was a death wish, but if I backed away from this now, I'd go back to face the wrath of the Juperian board. I wasn't afraid of them, but they were holding Tyler's life against me. My ship lurched, speeding towards the army heading my way. I grabbed a joystick on my right and pulled it 2 north and once east. Nothing happened. I blinked and looked down at my ammo count. I was empty. No bullets. I was done for. Panic struck me. Retreat, I ordered my comrades. They replied with questions, but I told them to do it or else. They listened, and on my radar I watched them return to the shield of Juperian airspace. Sir? My cadet asked on the line, just on the edge of radio limits. Tell my father. I tried, but then the front of my ship was hit by a plasma grenade, and it exploded, blasting me into the back of my ship in a ball of fire and smoke. My mask was ripped off my face, and a hole was torn in the hull, sucking the oxygen into space. Tyler. I opened my eyes to bright light. It wasn't white like a hospital's, which is what I would have expected if I could have thought while I was out. But it was kind of purpley blue. My vision cleared, and I looked around. I was strapped down to a metal slate in a small room. There were all kinds of weird things, tools hanging from the ceiling or laying on trays. They weren't pleasant-looking equipment either. Sharp things, pointy things, things with spikes on the end. I gulped and tried to sit up, but couldn't. I couldn't move. At least I wasn't in any pain. I lifted my head to look down at my body. Everything looked in order, which of course was odd, because the last thing I can remember was being thrown out of a 3rd-story window, falling to my death, and landing on my back on the concrete to die. This wasn't the second time it happened either, the whole dying and waking up fine thing, I mean. Now that my memories were back, I could see why Max had seemed so weird when I'd woken up. He was right. I did know him. How could I forget? Just then, the door opened, and a huge Martian walked in with a wobbling, bulging belly. He looked me over and chuckled, making a clicking noise with his tongue on his razor-sharp teeth. He came over to me with one claw outstretched. He ran it down the side of my face. I felt my skin peeling under the nail, but was determined not to show weakness. The warm blood trickled down my jaw to my neck. The Martian laughed again, then pulled a weapon on me and smirked. "Don't try anything," it hissed, then undid my straps. "Stand," he barked when he was done, and I did. I was shoved in the back towards the door and led outside. The hallway was long and curved away out of sight on both sides. It was colder out here, and it smelt different, like iron. "Where are we going?" I asked as I was shoved to the left. "To your death," the Martian cackled, and I had a sinking feeling in my stomach, tingling on the back of my neck. I knew he wasn't joking.